Wash these human waste of flesh and bones off this planet! I pray to you, God, to kill these fucking people!
Hey guys, Deathmetalbard here. It's time to talk about fucking tabletop RPGs. I love Vampire the Masquerade, one of my favorite RPG series. Really got me into tabletop games, and is still a very engaging series that I love to read on. There has been a recent article put out by a group, or a person by the name of Dog with Dice, who's made an article which is incredibly long, and yet is so verbally empty. It is empty of any kind of actual thought and care put into its research. That is very... I'm not even sure if the person who did this has ever actually played Vampire the Masquerade. Let me boil down the premise. It's very long. I will link the article for you, of course. You can make your own decisions on that, but it's very long. It's very boring, and there's no real evidence to back up any of its claims. But Dog with Dice seems to think that the new Vampire the Masquerade, the 5th edition, is being catered to alt-right people and neo-Nazis. Because vampires consider themselves superior to human beings. And that's apparently alt-right. Dog with Dice, I don't think you actually understand the premise of Vampire the Masquerade. The fact of the matter is that vampires do consider themselves superior to humans, because they are. They can do incredibly supernatural things that normal humans cannot do. They can withstand, depending on what's attacking them, they can withstand a shit amount of damage against them and heal it almost fairly easily in certain degrees. Obviously, being a tabletop game, you have, hit levels, obviously, and things like that. They are creatures that influence human nature, human society, often in ways that benefit them. And they are just naturally superior predators. But again, you're not looking at the double side of that. Just because that they are superior to humans, why is it then that they have to hide that? Because while they are superior creatures, they have to hide themselves because of the sheer number of humans. And there's some fatal flaw with vampires. Vampires can only come out at night. Humans don't have that problem. So humans, if many of them get together and go, vampires are real, let's kill them, I'm fairly certain vampires will get fucked in very horrible ways. Thus, that is why the masquerade is in place. The whole point of the masquerade is that humans never know that vampires exist. If something happens where there is the slightest, the tiniest bit of suspicion that humans know that vampires exist, that's a problem. And it is the duty of any prince. Prince, you may think, is a masculine title, but technically in vampire society, they don't really care a lot about gender, at least in certain aspects of it. A prince can be a guy or a girl or whatever, they don't really care. As long as that person has proven to be powerful and influential enough to be, to be in this high position. That it is their duty then to make sure that that person who did so is punished by the sheriff, whose job it is to stop all this shit from getting out of hand. You have to remember that vampire society is still strictly feudal. in its own way. You have titles, you have a prince, you have the sheriff, the seneschal, keeper of Elysium, and all these other various people. Very medieval, very feudal within modern society. Again, great twist. And you're claiming that all of that is alt-right and is horrible. Here's the thing about tabletop RPGs. If you don't like a particular part of the RPG, you can change it. It's a novel idea. But they state it several times in the books. If there's something there that you don't think works, don't use it. It's up to the table to decide what works and what doesn't work. It's the same thing with levels of horror. Vampire the Masquerade is a horror RPG. It is self-horror. It is horror of the unknown. It is horror that transcends basic human aspects of it. Vampires do horrible things to people. Even vampires that are excuse me. Even vampires that are mortal, or at the very least I would say neonate, the youngest vampires that are around, will have to commit horrible things to people. And some of this has to be with, well, I had to eat, and they were going to scream, I had to do something. Or this person found out that I'm a vampire, I need to kill them, so that way nobody knows that vampires exist. And it takes a toll on the actual humanity of the vampire by doing so. That is the balance. That is the balance and morality of vampires. Especially for young vampires. Which is some of the most engaging things. And here's the thing. I'm a white guy. I played a black vampire. And he was one of the best characters that I've ever played. He was very fun. And it provided me with different perspectives on vampire society through that. One of the best things of which I'm going to kind of discuss is an article, well, a very small little announcement piece from Onyx Path, one of the other publishing companies that does Vampire. And they say very much that if you don't, we don't support Nazis, you know, if you identify as a Nazi, don't play them. Again, Onyx Path is very liberal, but they're not SJW liberal. Hopefully they will never be. But I think what I really like about the little article, I will put it in the description as well, is that Onyx Path is not afraid to basically say, you're pulling things out of your ass and you're harassing people for things that you're only looking at through your lens of incredibly narrow mindset. And I think that's actually a pretty decent way to interpret SJW interactions with game series. We had Gamergate, I know, Dead Horse. Not talking about it too much. You have that. You have Comicsgate going on right now with stuff like diversity in comics and, you know, EVS and many other people. And now you have Tabletop RPG Gate. TTRPG Gate. With SJWs getting mad over tabletop games. So, Dice with Dogs, I think what you need to do is maybe actually read the series, understand what being a vampire is, and then get back to us on your little tirade about vampires being neo-Nazi. And, yeah, that's gonna be it. If you like the small little video, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. You know what to do. Deathmetalbard,